Hi, and welcome to another Scientology Outside of the Church podcast. This is season 12, episode 5, and the topic is taxes. Everybody's favorite and least favorite topic all at once. And LRH has a lot to say about taxes and taxation. So we've got some great fodder for a podcast and to go over and discuss, given everything going on currently on planet Earth and in the United States, Britain, Australia, you name it.
Mhm.
So, taxes. Let's talk about taxes and look at it in the framework of independent Scientology and LRH's viewpoint on it.
Well, yeah, and when you think about taxes, you kind of think about it as from a perspective of a third dynamic thing, right? Like the group, like what it was like all for one and one for all kind of thing, whereas the group is funneling a piece of their resources to the collective, and in this case we'll call the government the collective, to the collective in order to support all the needs of the collective. That's the way taxes are sold to us. That's the way taxes make sense to us. We comply to pay our taxes, obviously, because the idea is that my individual taxes, whether it be income tax or property tax or whatever, my individual taxes go to support the greater whole, the greater group, right? And that's what we are, that's the way we're sold taxes, and that's the way it supposedly makes sense, right?
Uh, Yeah. Well, I mean, it is penalizing an upstat. The more your production, the more you get taxed.
Well, you weren't supposed to go there yet.
Okay.
I was trying to make it sound good on paper. But you're right. You're right. You're absolutely right. It's like the more you do well, the more it actually hurts.
Right. So, what happens when you penalize an upstat?
You get a
You get
downstat.
down statistic.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's the problem. That's why people hate taxes. Is the harder I work, the less I have.
Yeah.
So why would I want to really produce? And that's what you get in in a situation such as we have here on Earth.
Well, and it's not so much the harder I work, the less I have. I think it's more so the harder I work, the more is taken. I think it's like maybe the way of looking at it.
Well,
The
yeah,
harder the
that
more I produce, the more is taken.
right.
Mm.
Yeah. So you're in a situation where you you get a great idea, you're successful with it, and then you look at your bottom line after taxes at the end of the year, and you go, wait, what?
Hmm. Boom.
Because yeah, and it's not that you're just taxed once. You have, and we can get into that, but I don't want to get too far ahead of us here.
Yeah.
What is LRH's viewpoint on this?
So it's interesting because the way he kind of looks at it is that it says here in a lecture he gave on organization. This is August 1966, August 23rd, 1966. He says, now income tax is the total violation today of the government ruling the individual. And that is a direct violation of it. So income tax willy nilly will make a country grow smaller. Isn't that interesting? Income tax willy nilly will make a country grow smaller. Now, it hasn't set in the United States as fast as it's set in England, but England has had income tax active longer than the United States. And he goes on to talk about how the when you set income tax, it actually discourages production. I think this is interesting that even LRH had this viewpoint, right? That
Hmm.
and this is in 1966. This is before the Bretton Woods. This is before coming off the gold standard. This is
Yeah.
before the fiat currency model. This is when money meant something. You know what I mean? This is when money was
Yep.
backed by gold. Now it's just a piece of paper printed off on denim or something.
Yeah. 59 years ago, he said this.
Hmm. Yeah,
It's almost hard to believe. 59 years.
it's a direct violation. And so income tax will make a country grow smaller. And I think that we're seeing that now at play where people are less able or less likely to produce or becoming more of a welfare state or whatever the case may be, where that becomes the way you handle things, right? The way you handle issues in our society is tax people to get money to throw at problems, tax people to get money to throw at problems. And I don't think that that's necessarily the way we want to handle things.
Yeah, and we could speculate on. You mentioned right before the podcast that there was a bill on the table to abolish the IRS. Now,
Mm-hmm.
one would have to ask, well, in the United States at least, one would have to ask, well, why would they do that?
Cui bono.
Why would that even be a consideration? And we could get into the fact that the IRS is not even part of the federal government, nor is the Fed, even though they get appointed by the government, which is really odd. So you think, okay, does this have something to do with the digital crypto dollar and everything, to where they don't need to charge taxes anymore because they control your money once they have a digital dollar and a digital ID? I would have to say that I think that that is entirely possible, which still is taxation. But currently, you have your income tax, you have your property tax, you have your tax on sales, you have your tax on fuel,
Mm-hmm.
which is sales. But I mean, and it goes on and on and on, and then you have a situation where what is it that you're really making after all of these different taxes? It's actually far less than just what they tax your income, which multiplies the penalty for being able to produce. Production is the basis of morale, which is why you have a shrinking uh, government, a shrinking economy, and then on top of that, you have inflation, which is created by, well, it says in the finance series, money is an idea backed by confidence,
That's
and
right.
part of confidence in a fiat currency is the fact that you can do something with it, which is the Dianetic principle: survive.
Mm-hmm.
What's your thought on all this, Arthur?
Yeah, I don't know a huge amount about um, Scientology, but from what I understand, um, as far as like trusts and things like that go, I believe the church is very cleverly set up to not pay tax in a legal manner.
I'm
Well,
sure.
And so,
yeah, and
so because everybody's a volunteer minister, right? So they're not on a wage. And so by being a
right.
volunteer minister, they're not actually earning an income because everything's contribution based like a church is. But the funny thing about churches is they can employ people as well. And so the money gets split up kind of like dividends, which is tax free. And so I reckon that's why they had such an issue with the IRS and with why they were having such issues just with tax in general and why people had such a big deal about it because it wasn't the traditional church as such. It wasn't your
Right.
traditional Christian church. It was an organization. And this is funny because it's all the words that really make the difference. An organization versus a church.
Mm-hmm.
You can almost say a church is an organization, but most people believe an organization to be a company or a business or some kind of financial, some kind of money making organization, whereas the church itself isn't, because it offers courses, it offers services. It doesn't offer a trade. It doesn't offer an invoice for its services. It works off contributions. So it's pretty clever, like really clever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, back in '96 in the church, when they said they won the quote unquote battle against the IRS, which we've covered in several other podcasts, they were actually taken over by an arm of the IRS and are now run by a body of corporate attorneys that aren't Scientologists. So when you pay taxes, they said, your donations are deductible and whatnot. What it came down to is in reality, when you looked into it, only a portion of your donations are deductible.
Right.
Which does, I mean, it's
Yeah,
contrary
that's right.
facts. They said one thing and it was actually another. So you're still getting taxed on your donation. So the IRS is still getting their cut at only a fraction of what you pay for your donations is actually
Tax deductible.
non-taxable.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't make much
Which,
sense at all.
well, it kind of does, because, like, imagine if you only paid just a flat rate. Like, I don't know about other countries, but here in Australia, the more you earn, the bigger percentage of tax you pay, up
Yeah.
to a capped amount. So here in Australia, the highest is 47% of your income, which
Jesus.
is almost half. And I think
Yeah,
that's capped. I'm not 100%, but I think it's around the 130, $180,000 mark. So
right.
at that point, from then on, everything is taxed at 47%, which is insane.
Yeah,
That's like half your money.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's 40% in the US at the highest tier, but that's without deductions and all of that.
Well,
And
yeah, yeah.
whether yeah,
Well, that's your
and
taxable
the
income. So even if you reduce your deductions and you're still left over with, say, $200,000 in your pocket after deductions, you're still paying that amount. It's just crazy.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, and go ahead, Quentin. That's
no, you
fine.
go ahead and finish your flow.
Well, what I was going to say is that the nice thing about independent Scientology is when we give you an invoice in the United States, you can literally say that it's business consulting because that's what it is.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
we're not part of the corporate Church of Scientology, which falls under that particular tier, and there's certain regulations on it and everything. So you get a much better deduction.
It's good. Yeah. Well, and LRH says here in another lecture, it is on, let's see, this is April 29th, 1954. It's called Universes and the War Between Theta and Mest. Okay. And he says here, let's see. Oh, I just had it. Oh, here goes. He says, by the way, I don't want to knock income tax. Income tax is merely a penalty for having. And a government has the right to penalize people and has the right to kill people, has the right to break the country. It owns the country after all, and the people have nothing to do with it. And so don't get mixed up politically here. The world today is gauged so that you can't have a thing. Isn't that what the whole thing is? You'll own nothing and be happy, kind of thing, right? The
Right.
the world today is gauged so that you can't have a thing. If you do have anything, you get your teeth kicked in. Anyway, I'm totally impartial politically. That's LRH.
Uh,
And what I like about this particular lecture, the one I'm reading from now, he talks about how what happens to the being, what happens to the being when a loss is taken, or when there's a loss taken, when there's a hit taken, and it could be even to your havingness. And he says he paints everything black and so forth. That's a sudden occlusion with regard to loss. And so it doesn't matter if it's loss of a child or loss of a family member or loss of a body part, loss of money, that there's a painting of black that happens. And as he goes on to this through this lecture, he just talks about how this loss actually happens over and over and over, year after year after year after year, with tax, and what it actually does to the being. I think it's so interesting that he spotted this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he said his spirit, I'm just reading down, he said his spirit, when he does this, is of sort of self-punishment. He actually starts to mess himself up because of the way he's been handled. I think it's so interesting. So taxes are a very interesting game.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we're looking at the word tax, okay? And so tax is, in order for you to exist, you must pay me because this is my area of geographic location. If we go back to, and of course, in Arthur's case, Australia used to be a commonwealth of the crown from the United Kingdom. It was originally owned by the United Kingdom, and now is its own separate entity, as is India, because these were all places that they came in and colonized and arbitrarily said, "You are now ours."
Mm-hmm.
And so they said, since you are now ours, an arbitrary, and let's define an arbitrary for our listeners. What is an arbitrary, Arthur? You want to look that one up?
I got it right here, actually.
1 second.
Okay.
Okay, do you? Yeah,
Either
thanks,
one of
buddy.
you.
Yeah. Arbitrary
Arthur's
is
usually our dictionary dude.
arbitrary is
We
based
we
on
had some
random.
surprise kittens, and
Oh,
I'm just tending to them at the moment.
oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Arbitrary is based on random choice or personal whim rather than any reason or system.
Right. So it's an arbitrary to say, and I've heard this before from people who have met.
Oh, wait, hold on a second. Let me say this. Number two, definition number two of arbitrary, of the ruling of or of power or a ruling body, unrestrained and autocratic in the use of authority. The country, the country is under arbitrary government. It's the power or the ruling body has unrestrained or autocratic in use of authority. It's unrestrained and autocratic in use of authority. It's arbitrary. That's actually what it means. It means arbiter, which means to judge, supreme ruler. And it comes from the derivation. It says here, depending on one's will or pleasure, arbiter
Right, or whim.
or whim. Yeah, as the judge or supreme ruler of something. So it's like, oh, I just want this money. I just want you. I'll just tax you today, extra 50%. What?
Right.
Okay. And because I live here, I therefore must comply.
Right. Now this leads all the way back in the old days,
Odin.
where we
Olden days.
had yeah, we had monarchies and kings and everything. You had the arbitrary of this wealthy dude, and I'm stating this simply. This wealthy dude comes along and he has some guys with some really pointy sticks and pointy metal things. And he has a blacksmith on his side. And the blacksmith is told, I want you to make these pointy things made out of metal with heat. And I want you to put them on the end of sticks. And I want you to put them on the end of shorter sticks and make them swords and pikes. And then you had your other types of weapons that they had, quote unquote, power over, in order to subjugate the people that lived in the area. And then he went out and said, okay, this is my area, arbitrary, because I have pointy sticks and fire. Now, are you going to do what I tell you to do and give me something I'll tell you what. I'll go ahead and then I'll have the blacksmith make up some coins. Now this goes even further back if you look at LRH's finance series. The blacksmiths, once upon a time, are what banks were originally. You gave them your gold, your silver to hold, and they gave you a promissory note that said, I've got so much gold or silver sitting with the blacksmith down the way because he can change its form. And you can go down and you can get a
Piece of it.
promissory note off my promissory note. And instead of getting a promissory note, we'll make it something that's harder and lasts longer than a piece of paper. And now we have coins. And then the king said, aha, okay, now we're really talking. Now give me some of those coins because I've got so much of this. And now you've got these guys with pointy things pointing them at you saying, I want some of that stuff that I've given you because I'm going to protect you from these guys on the outside. And in some cases, problem reaction solution, even then these
Mm-hmm.
raiders would come in and beat these people up and say, this is our area, and the king would sit there and say, yes, yes, now they need somebody to protect them, and he would come out and say, I'll protect you from these evil doers, but first you need to give me some money.
Pay your taxes.
Pay your
Mm-hmm.
taxes in order to do that. Now more modern day, and you look at India, you look at Australia, and all of this stuff, all of these arbitrary governments are saying, we're going to protect you if you give us X amount of your productive endeavors in the form of coins that is backed by confidence that's supposed to be held by, quote unquote, the king, the president, the queen, wherever you're at, or government at large. So the arbitrary is they say that they own this land. When the British came over to the United States, they were trying to escape taxation from King George. And so they said, we're not going to pay your taxes. For example, in the Boston Tea Party, the tea was being taxed at so high a rate they poured the tea into Boston Harbor and said, this is outrageous. We're not going to pay that much money on the tea. And so they said, we're going to take our pointy things and we're going to go after your guys with pointy things and muskets with even faster, pointier things, and we're going to rebel. And they did. And the king said, okay, okay, we're getting our asses handed to us. You guys go do your own thing. Sort of.
Sort of.
And so now you have an arbitrary where and this is where arbitraries come in on taxes and governments is you already had an indigenous group of people wherever
Yep.
a want to be ruling government comes into, whether it's India. Arthur can tell you all kinds of stories about how the Australian government treats the Aborigines in Australia
Yeah.
and how the British treated the Indian populace in order to get spices and all of that stuff. So you have all of this colonialism happening where they're coming in and arbitrarily saying this is ours and we want more. And modern day, what you have is whoever had the pointiest sticks and knew how to use them put this arbitrary out there and said, okay, these are our borders. You need to pay us so that we protect you from the outside world. So it's arbitrary on top of arbitrary on top of arbitrary on top of arbitrary. And anybody who doesn't abide by it, like the indigenous uh, native peoples of what is now the United States, disagreed. And they said, well, we were here first. And the people with the pointy stick said, we don't care. You're a part of us. And if you don't want to be a part of us, you got to go. And this is not protection.
Or you're forced to go.
Or you're forced to go, or you're forced into extinction through genocide,
Yeah.
which is what is happening now in Palestine.
Mm, mm, mm.
So in some cases, they don't want you around at all because they've already gotten what they want. They've surrounded you, and now you're just a momentary inconvenience for their needs and wants. And we could get into the whole Palestine thing and all of that. But what it comes down to is religion, arbitraries, pointy things, and a need for more resources to continue to feed the expansion of what we currently see here on planet Earth. And what we're running into is we're expanding faster at a rate. We're over 8 billion people now, soon to be 9. There's 400,000 people born a day and about 200,000 people dying a day. So it kind of keeps it in check. But we're growing at a mad rate, and technology is increasing so rapidly that they have to lock things down as quickly as they can in order to prevent the 1% being overtaken by the 99% via taxation. And so the technology increases with AI and internet and computers and everything to the point where now the tipping point is rapidly approaching around 2030, unless we get this understood about what we're dealing with here as far as taxation and arbitraries and pointy things and things that go boom. It's
What?
just an arbitrary. There's a lot more of us than there are them.
Well, and I think it's really important also that as independent Scientologists, we also understand that you create your own reality, right?
Right.
And we did a podcast a while back talking about. I did a teaching a while back called "The Privileged People," and I talked about how the word privilege, it comes from the word privilegus, private law, privilegus, private law. And so if you're one of the privileged people, you had your own private law. You were operating with your own private law. And what ends up happening is that if you are so inclined to have your own private law or be privileged to have your own private way of operating, you can do things a bit differently. This is why being independent Scientologist is such an amazing benefit to livingness, because you get to live differently. You get to do things differently. You get to see things differently. And as you go up the bridge and as you raise your awareness characteristics, I was just talking to somebody today about this. As you raise your awareness characteristics, you become aware of things from a different perspective. You know how to move and navigate things from a different way, and you don't become the adverse effect. I hope you guys are getting this. You don't become the adverse effect of what's going on in life around you, everywhere, right?
Right.
And it doesn't mean that you're disconnected, and doesn't mean you're an ostrich with your head in the sand. What it means is that as this stuff is going on, you become more causative in these moments versus the effect of these moments. That could even apply to your finances. That could even apply to you when it comes to taxes and stuff like that. You now know how to govern yourself appropriately as per the country you're in, or as per the tax code you're a part of, or however you go move, right? And you now know how to move in and through these things where you are not the adverse effect of. You can benefit if you so choose. I'm just saying, listen, we're not accountants, we're not tax professionals. Don't take your advice from people, just random people on the internet, but do your research and really know what you're doing. Scientology is knowing how to know.
That's
And we
right.
and
And
we know how to
and
know some stuff.
right, and that's why we do these podcasts, is that we're trying to make people aware of things, because what LRH was trying to say and why he was such a novel individual is he had such a high confront for everything that was going on around us, instead of just accepting what the normal is. You know, you hear that expression, it's something like, what is it? You know, the two things you can be certain of: death and taxes. You know, and it's just okay. Now I'm supposed to. This is what everybody does. Now, I'm not saying that anybody should evade taxes or anything like that, but you need to understand what it is that you're dealing with. And that's what Scientology, independent Scientology, helps you do, is it gets you to understand that arbitraries exist everywhere, and
Yes.
why these
Gosh.
arbitraries exist, and how it is limiting you. When we take you in session, what are we, and this is a side rail, but it's not. When we
Yeah.
take you in session, what are we doing? We're handling arbitraries.
Yep. Please
And
understand this.
arbitrary, right, this is ridiculously important. We're handling arbitraries that you have assumed to be true,
Right.
that you're not aware of. You forgot you
I'm
made
gonna
a
give
decision about it and said, I accept.
the definition again. Arbitrary, based on random choice or personal whim, rather than reason or systems. So these arbitraries, please understand what he's saying. When you're in session, you're spotting arbitraries around you, about you, concerning you, that you've decided were true, it says personal whim. You've made, with relationships, I got an arbitrary on relationships. Finances, I got an arbitrary on finances. Not based on any reason, not based on any system of doing or being or having. It's based on random choice and personal whim about how I feel about this thing. Isn't that crazy? And that's how we live. We go through life with these arbitraries governing us. And I'm not just talking about government, but that's one of them. But we have our own personal arbitraries that are governing us. And these arbitraries, get this, they become taxing,
Right,
heavy, violent,
right,
destructive.
right. And to get back, just for a moment, to get back to taxation, okay? The idea, the concept of taxation is endemic, and we probably should look up the word endemic for people so that they understand that it being endemic is an arbitrary consideration. What
Endemic,
does endemic mean?
of a disease regularly occurring within an area or a community. Regularly occurring. If it keeps on
Mhm.
showing up, listen, property tax. You bought the house, you own the house, they say, but if you don't pay that property tax, boy, do you know something different.
Right, you
A
don't own it
disease,
anymore.
a disease regularly occurring within an area or a community. That's endemic.
So when I say that is endemic, okay, let's peel the onion one step further. What is capitalism? What does capitalism consist of? You buy.
Capitalism. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
That's right. Go ahead.
Yeah,
You can go ahead.
yeah, it's an economic or political system that the country trades um, profit for value, I guess. Yeah.
Right, right. So if we look at capitalism that way, I buy, uh, I produce or I buy something, and then I sell it at a higher price.
Mhm.
That's taxation.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's taxation. I speculate and I buy a piece of land, and it arbitrarily goes up in value,
Mm.
like many places on the planet right now, South Africa, the United States, real estate, it arbitrarily goes up in value. And this is what's happening with BlackRock in the United States, is that they're buying houses in neighborhoods. And this is important. Please get this. Okay, it is endemic to what is happening across the globe when it comes to real estate and other things. The investment company BlackRock is buying houses. Okay, they buy them, and then they increase the value of the house by buying other houses in the neighborhood and then selling them for more arbitrarily, thus raising the comparative price of houses in the neighborhood and pricing them out of the buyability range for people to buy. And then they are renting them out at their arbitrary rates. It's nobody can afford the houses. You will own nothing and be happy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds
That is
like
a
Australian
form of
real estate.
capitalism. Yeah.
What you
That is
said?
a form of capitalism.
Mhm. And by the way, it says capitalism is an economic and political system in which a country's trade and industry are controlled by private owners for profit. That is the definition of capitalism. Controlled by private owners for profit.
Right. So whether you say capitalism or you say taxation, they're one and the same. It is an arbitrary to consider them anything other than that. Because now our listeners are going to say, well, how do I make money? How do I make money if I can't charge more for something than what I got it for? Now, let's roll this back. You're a thetan in a body, okay? Think about that and then plug that into the concept of capitalism and taxation. You're a thetan who produces energy and moves things around in the physical universe with that meat puppet, your body.
Oh, it's so good.
Okay. Do our listeners, do they get this?
Listen, you're speaking the gospel right now because you are a spiritual being. You are a thetan that produces energy. You produce confidence. You produce value. We did a whole podcast about this, about your potential value, the potential value of an individual. You
Right.
produce value. And I want you to understand this, that the valuable resource of this land is not gold and silver. It's
Right.
applied to gold and silver. It's the apparency is that it's in gold and silver, but the value of this land, the value of the United States or whatever, is the people.
It's
That's the real capital. It's human capital. I'm telling you what I know, not what I read out of a book. And so
exactly.
and so if you understand this, that the value is in you. The value is in you, and you as a spiritual being, you as a thetan have the ability to produce energy, to manufacture it. And then they take that manufactured power and they say, now go get on the assembly line. Now go to the factory. Now go and work at such at Starbucks. Do whatever you got to do. And then make the money to then put back into the system so that we can keep this whole machine running. But you the one running on the treadwheel.
Right.
I hope
So
you
it's
see this.
backwards. Right. It's backwards because the arbitrary is that you've bought into these arbitraries. Why are you arbitrarily buying into further arbitraries that make you a gerbil or hamster in a wheel to where you're the energy production unit, not some
Yes.
arbitrary value of something over time where somebody else says, I own this thing and it has more value now because I arbitrarily say that it has more value. And to the degree that they tax, get this, to the degree that they tax you, now it has even more value.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's, you just, wait, what? So look at this as an energy production unit. How can you, how can you tax something that wasn't there unless you yourself put that energy, because this whole physical universe, everything in it as a thetan, energy is produced by moving one thing from one state to another.
Yes.
Everything pushes everything else. That's all you do as a thetan in a body in the physical universe. I'm breaking it down to its simplest, most understandable structure.
Come on,
If you look
accents.
at an engine, yeah, if you look at an engine, how does a combustion engine produce power?
It changes the fuel
You
into power.
right, right. But you back it up and go, okay, well, who produced the fuel? Well, it was done at a plant that converted oil into gasoline. Okay, who did
Mm-hmm.
that? A Thetan. Okay, who
Mm-hmm.
produced that refinery to do that? Who
A
did
thing.
that? A Thetan. Okay, well, where did the oil come from? Well, we found it in the ground and realized that we could do something with it, so we pulled it out of the ground and put it in barrels and then set it to a refinery. Who pushed that? A Thetan.
Well, listen, and who created the physical universe? Thetans.
Right, because we all agreed we're going to
Collectively.
live in this wonderful hologram that is thin. And Ellerich even mentions this in the Knots material, non-confidential information here. It's part of the axioms that as you go up the bridge, you start to realize that the physical universe is really more two-dimensional and flimsy. Okay,
Mm,
it's like a movie set. It's not really there.
the
We
Truman
have this
Show.
arbitrary, right, the Truman Show. We're living on a movie stage of our own agreement and arbitrary. Okay. And from there, the hilarity ensues. And then living on that movie stage, we decide these are the rules. This is what I'm going to create energy, push something with a meat puppet around and make one thing push another. Now, back to the engine analogy. Once we have that oil, what is the oil? The oil that's now fuel that's been pushed to be in there. Now, think about it. How many things get pushed from oil in the ground to get into the engine in your car, which was also pushed to be in a certain form at a car factory? You put that fuel in the car. What does the fuel do? It pushes a piston as the fuel ignites in the engine, pushing a drivetrain that pushes the wheels, that pushes the car down the road. Think about this and look at how this whole line is push, 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 push. So, if that's the case, why aren't we pushing things in other directions
Right.
that aid a person's survival, that make life easier to live, that nobody needs to be homeless, that values don't have to be arbitrary, nobody needs to go hungry? Because what's happening is we're being pushed to give more and take less, while more get more and we get less because we arbitrarily agreed to it, and that is capitalism and taxation.
Right. And let me also say this, because I've said in multiple podcasts in the past about how I know money, right? I know money, and I've made it a bit of a game and a study to understand how money moves, how money works, how to manufacture it, how to produce it. Not manufacture as in, you know, how to make money, how to earn money in a way that makes sense, right? And in understanding this, there was this book called The Science of Getting Rich by Charles Hannell. He says, always give in use value more than you ask in money value or in dollar value, right? So you always give in use value more than you take or ask in money value. So when we talk about going up the bridge, when we talk about getting on course, this is why when you go to the corporate side of things, corporate church or whatever, and it's astronomical. It's an astronomical rate to do what they're suggesting, right? And then you come here to independent Scientology, and it's like, wow, that's havable. I can actually have that amount. I can work with that. I can do that because giving to you in use value more than what we ask in money value, physical value, material value. The reason why that's important is because there is so much abundance, exchange and abundance. That's it. Exchange and abundance. You're going to be able to
Mm-hmm.
use this tech. You're going to be able to use this tech so much more than what is asked in material value. You're going to be able to use your beingness and expand your beingness so much more, you see. And so this is why it works. This is why independent Scientology is working. This is why we are on these podcasts 3, 4 times a week. This is why we're having these conversations all day. Every day we're having these conversations with people around the world because it's so valuable in use value. What you can use this to do, to accomplish, to be, you see. This is why this
Mm-hmm.
works. And so please understand that when we're talking about taxation, we're talking about what is demanded of you and what is weighing on you and what is this arbitrary that's forced compulsorily. It says that's the definition. It says a compulsory. It's compulsory that's upon you. And now you have an opportunity to use these resources that you've accumulated to now become bigger, better, stronger, more able. And that's what you
Right.
want to use this for.
Right. Now it's an important point that we need to look at this as a ratio. Okay. A
That's good.
ratio is a comparative analysis, like, let's say, 2 to 1 with a colon in between, or 4 to 1, or 25 to 1, or 100 to 1. Okay. Now, what you're dealing with here is when you're getting auditing, you're and this is the distinction that needs to be made. We just had a conversation with a public about this morning, is that the ratio with what you're getting in auditing is 100 to 1 that you would get out of something in the physical universe. And you go, well, wow, that's a tremendous profit. Yes, it is. Because what's happening is you're increasing your ability to focus your ability into pushing things around in the physical universe to get more work done in a shorter period of time, because now you're more aware. You have the faculty, the facility to create more exchange in a shorter period of time, because it's always that time thing. And a time, yes, per the Scientology and Dianetic axioms, that's an arbitrary too that you've agreed to. And you go, I could never do that in 6 months. Well, what if you could do it in 6 hours? That is because the ratio is 100 to 1. You don't wait on the physical universe to give you what it is that you need to do. When you can change it through your ability to push things much faster at exponential rates than you would have been able to heretofore before you received auditing and or got training to understand such things as arbitraries, exchange, time, production. What is a valuable final product? LRH looks at everything from the viewpoint of what's the product, what's the exchange that's going on here. The exchange in auditing is by far the absolute best exchange you can get to enable you to then transfer that exchange into moving things around at a faster particle flow, because rate of particle flow determines, wait for it, power,
Yes.
LRH.
Yes. You got to get this. The faster you can move particles in this messed universe, the more powerful you are. Now you determine what those particles are. It could be a bullet, it could be photons, it could be whatever. It could be cash. Listen, it's a particle. If you the
Right,
faster the faster you can move particles around, the more powerful you are.
right. And we're tying all this together
Yep.
because what we're talking about here is, we're not talking about, podcast isn't about how to make more money. All right, that's a side effect. And we said this in multiple podcasts before. That is a side effect because, to the degree that you are enabled as a Thetan and you have more ARC and more affinity reality communication, which equals understanding, and you have more KRC, which you have to have ARC for, knowledge, responsibility, and control equals power.
Mhm.
To the degree that you have a better understanding of it, a better awareness of that understanding, and now you can use it to make things happen quicker. And get this, it's not about action,
Yeah.
it's about understanding. ARC, because you can sit there and say, well, if I earned $15 an hour at minimum wage, which it's not, and that's an arbitrary, minimum wage is an arbitrary, and it's a false arbitrary, keeps you as a gerbil and a hamster at the wheel. Okay. You have to look at things and go, this is work smarter, not harder as a Thetan. Because if you understand that when you do something, how many cycles of action is it going to take me to do this thing? Everything comes down to that baseline. How long am I going to have to work at $15 an hour in order to achieve X?
Yeah.
Okay, that's not going to do it. I need, like LRH says, get a bright idea. The brightest of all brightest ideas, hands down, and you can't see this until you do it, is to get in session, get on course, and get a better understanding to where you can open yourself up, and now you have brighter ideas that allow you to do more per cycle of action per second, not just in the physical universe, but in the theta universe. Because at the top of the tone scale, serenity of beingness is just knowing. Maybe you don't see the whole path that way, but when you know, you know, you know. And that's the definition of Scientology, knowing how to know. And that's what we do at AOGP and the College of Independent Scientology. And in this podcast is we're raising your awareness to a point to where you can do less cycles of action that get faster products, valuable final products that end up pushing things in a direction both of the physical universe and advancement of your awareness and ability to postulate in the theta universe. And the physical universe is just a mere side effect, but the whole idea is to be at total cause, total knowing.
Yes.
And you don't have to worry about taxation anymore and other people's arbitraries. Don't buy into it unless you want to play that game. Play a different game.
And I'll say it this way, and as in an easy to remember format, just get happy. Get happy, get free, get going, and do it by any means necessary. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. We know what we're talking about. There's things that are afoot, there's things that are transpiring, there's things that are happening where you need to go ahead and be where you need to be. And you know where you need to be because you ain't where you want to be. Okay? And so get happy by any means necessary. And this is the way that we're offering you to start that journey. So I'm super excited about this.
Absolutely. Agree to disagree, learn the rules, understand the arbitraries, disagree with those arbitraries, and you can set up your own arbitraries, because
Yes.
to the degree that you have your own arbitraries and you power is the ability to hold a position in space. I mean, it's still an arbitrary only because you conceive it, but it's a lot better arbitrary than somebody else's arbitraries that says,
It's
uh,
self-determined.
right, it's 4 for me and 1 for you. That's the tax man. And that's how we wrap this whole thing up is change your consideration. Considerations are separate from the physical universe. So here's the data, make it your own.
There you go.
So we hope you've gotten a lot out of this podcast. Arthur didn't get a chance to say much. Is there anything you want to add, Arthur?
No, I think also like alongside getting yourself up to scratch, but also start looking into some of this stuff too, so you have a better understanding of what tax is and um, actual ways that you can go about making the
Right.
best of what you've got.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, do your own due diligence, and when you enlighten yourself through looking words up and understanding concepts, what we're talking about in
It's
this
huge.
podcast today, it's huge. And to the degree that you understand something is to the degree that you can't be the adverse effect of it. That's LRH. And just because he said it doesn't make it true. If you see this for yourself and you go, damn, this guy was right on the mark. Okay, you have agreement. That's a new arbitrary because that's a fact. You've proven it out. If you roll a ball and you roll it downhill, well, there's gravity. Okay. Does that mean gravity exists everywhere? Nope, just in this situation. Okay. I can see how that could be. But even the laws of physics are arbitrary. And we're not being told everything, because if we were told everything, we wouldn't be on this planet the way that it is. It wouldn't be the way that it is. So do your own due diligence, prove it out, see that 2 and 2 equals 4. And if you have any questions, I guarantee you the information that we have and have made available for free, because that's the fair exchange. He said, the work is free, keep it so. We've got it. We'll train you on it. And what we get, our tax, and I'm saying this jokingly, but it's true, our tax is we're helping you with this information, and we're making sure that you've got it and that you can apply it and that you do use it and you have wins with it. And that goes on course on training, and that also goes to we're taxing you to get you up the bridge and free so that you can be who you really are and have the abilities that you really have. You just changed your mind and said, I can't anymore. That's our fee for that. But boy, it's a heck of a lot cheaper, a fraction of what it is from anybody else. And we do it right. So come see us at ao-gp.org, collegeofindependent-scientology.com. Listen to these podcasts over and over when you go to the gym, when you're out for a walk, or you're just sitting at home. And really apply this information and see if it's true for yourself. And if it is, I beseech you, Quentin does, Arthur does. We know that this stuff works. And you have a brief breath in eternity to avail yourself of this information. Make it so, find out for yourself, and get up the bridge, and you will be happy, as Quentin says. So for
Yes.
Arthur, Quentin, and myself, namaste, and we love you. Bye-bye.
Peace.
Bye bye.